Hey everyone, my name's Lee, and I am a trans man. I'm making this video because apparently I am contractually obligated as a trans person to talk about my transition on the internet. This video is 100% going to just be about me and my personal experience being trans, because as of November 16th, 2019, I am 2 months on T, and I just want to talk about it. I want to shout into the void just about being trans. So if this isn't something that interests you, don't worry, I am going to be having another video that's not trans related at all next week, so stick around for that. But this week we're going to be talking about being trans. So to provide a little bit of background on my general transness, I guess, I originally came out towards the tail end of my high school career after a period of experimenting with gender, sort of going by gender fluid and using whatever pronouns people wanted to give me. People would call me she, her, he, him, they, them. It didn't really matter, I just sort of wanted to not be strictly female. As long as I remember, I've never fully identified with being a girl. While I was fine wearing makeup and enjoyed dressing up from time to time, I didn't typically want to wear girls' clothes. I wasn't big on the colors that girls typically were told to wear, like pinks and purples and light blues. Even though purple is my favorite color, I just didn't think those colors looked good on me. I also didn't like stereotypically girly clothing for the most part. Wasn't a fan of lace or ruffles or skirts or anything that was like puffy or cute. I didn't like glitter or sequins at all either. A lot of my friends seemed to be really into glitter back then, and I just did not like it. And typically when I was playing with other kids on playgrounds and stuff, I would always want to be boy characters or a boy during the game. I distinctly remember in like preschool a bunch of kids wanting to play like pretend as Lion King characters, and I demanded to be Simba. And that carried on into me doing a lot of theater as a kid and into high school. I always wanted to play male roles for the most part. Now, there were the occasional times where I wanted to play like a female role, but pretty much every time that I would audition for something, I wanted to be a male character. Because that was really the only time I was able to act as a man. You know, I was raised in a Christian environment, so it was really hard for me to sort of express anything other than the norm. My school also had uniform regulations, which meant I had to wear certain things every day. And girls at that school were allowed to wear pants. Like, the uniform regulations were essentially shorts, pants, or skirts. So it wasn't like a Catholic school where we had skirts. They were like a skirt kind of deal where it's like that weird flap of a skirt. I don't know. Because I was super interested into acting and theater and wanted to be an actor when I was younger, my mom would put me into these theater camp drama things. So one year I went to this camp. I was in like the 6th grade or something like that. The camp was all girls. Now, it wasn't like a girls only camp. It's just that for that year, no one signed their sons up. So it was just all girls at this camp. At that point, I was sort of confused about my gender. I didn't really feel 100% female, so I sort of dressed like a boy. I wore a lot of baggy t-shirts and baggy jeans. At the time, I had really long hair, so I either kept it tied back in a tight ponytail that was like sort of low hanging, or I would wear a wig. So I went to this camp every day like that and sort of just assimilated into being a boy. I just told all of the kids there that I was a boy. The camp counselors also didn't question it. They were like, okay, sure, you're a boy. And for 2 weeks of my life, I was just a boy. Since there were no other boys at the camp, there was no problem with me using the boys' bathroom. I was able to use the boys' dressing room for when, you know, we actually had the show. It was really interesting. It was really kind of weird. That definitely cemented what I wanted to be. I still played around with gender a lot just because I didn't know what trans was yet. I didn't actually learn what a trans person was until I saw the TLC special about the pregnant man. That was like a big news thing when I was younger. Everyone like went ham over this one trans dude who decided to have a baby. I'm pretty sure the story about this guy was that he and his wife wanted to have kids, but his wife couldn't get pregnant, right? I couldn't just look it up. It was a whole thing. I could just Google it. Fine. I'm just gonna Google it because I don't know. So I looked him up. He seems like a really interesting guy. Why haven't I looked into him before? So this dude is like a public speaker and a transgender advocate and just super cool, I guess. But that was the first time I had ever seen anything that would suggest to me that you could change gender. Like, I knew about drag queens, but drag queens don't really permanently change their gender. It's a performance, and I was used to doing that as well, just being a male on stage. I didn't think that I could ever actually become a man. But after seeing that documentary and being very confused, my mom pretty much said, oh, well, he used to be a woman. And that changed everything for me. but I was somehow convinced that I would never be able to achieve what he did. I guess I thought that he was just born naturally passing somehow. Don't know how I thought that, but whatever. The idea of hormones and surgery didn't occur to me because I just didn't know they existed. And I was still also very young. So I continued to hate myself. I hated my body, I hated my hair, I hated my voice, I hated my face. I hated the fact that I wasn't very athletic. Just everything about me I disliked on some level. At the time, I was overweight and would only gain weight in very feminine places like my hips and my thighs and my stomach. That compounded with the fact that I had very long hair that curled in like ringlets, so it was very feminine looking hair, and my voice was very feminine, and I was starting to like develop and stuff as a woman. It just wasn't fun. And I do want to make it clear, just because you're uncomfortable with your body, be it because of how much or how little you weigh, or just how your body is generally laid out, doesn't necessarily mean you're trans. It's just, for me, that's how my experience was. But I just lived with it and was very unhappy for a very long time. Then I got a Tumblr. So Tumblr was my first exposure to the trans community, as it were, be it both the positive and the negative aspects of it. Before then, I had never really been exposed to any trans people. At the time, no one in my life was trans. Now, some of those people did end up coming out as trans later on in life, but at the time, we were all just a bunch of cis kids. But being online and being able to see these posts, it finally gave me a word for that feeling I had had this entire time. Dysphoria. Because I finally had this word for it, I knew what I needed to start doing. So I started to bind, but I didn't have a binder yet, so I was using ace bandages. After a pretty minor injury, I had some ace bandages laying around, so I decided to just use them because they were clean and they were there. And I would bind my chest like that for years. It wasn't until my sophomore year of high school I got my first binder under the guise of needing it for theater and for cosplay. I actually still own that binder and still wear it sometimes. It's very stretched out and very loose, and I only really wear it around the house or if I don't plan on going anywhere because it doesn't bind me super tight. It doesn't actually flatten me that much anymore, but I just like having it on sometimes. That binder, and actually the one I'm wearing now, is from a company called Tea Kingdom. Their binders are kind of expensive. They're like $70, but the kind that they have that I really like has a zipper in the middle, so if I need to unbind for some reason, I can just quickly unzip it. I have a problem with slouching, so there have been a lot of times where I've just sort of constricted myself in a way where I can't breathe, and just being able to quickly just pull that zipper down has been very helpful. There are also companies out there like GC2B and stuff like that where you can get pretty good binders that are relatively on the cheaper side, so maybe look into that instead of Tea Kingdom. I do love Tea Kingdom, though. Not sponsored by any of this, by the way. But after getting my first binder, my life was infinitely better. And by infinitely better, I mean I just felt better for the most part. I would bind for days at a time, like just completely throwing out any instructions that I should have been following. The whole 8 hours thing just completely went out the window for me. Do I have warped ribs now because of all of this? Maybe a little, but we're not going to talk about that. And then, nothing. For years. Once I started binding and just going by male pronouns, I kinda stopped for a really long time. I had essentially socially transitioned and everything was fine in my eyes at that point. I actually never changed my name. My name has always been Lee. I did technically change the spelling of it to make it more masculine, but I like my name. I think that's evidenced by the fact that it's in my username. And that's around the time I graduated high school, and I was just terrified of what the future of being trans would be. I would fall in and out of presenting as male, partially because I was in a relationship with a straight cis dude, and things would get kind of awkward the more I thought about my gender identity. I still felt like a man. I would still bind and try to look like a man on occasion, but for the most part, I felt like I was doing a disservice to my partner by wanting to transition. And that is terrible, and I feel bad for anyone who might be in a position like that now, because it put me through a lot of negative mental health repercussions. So much so that that relationship ended, and it is mostly because my dysphoria caused a rift. And that fact makes me very sad, but ultimately it's what gave me the push to get on hormones. For the entirety of that relationship, my dysphoria continued to get worse. It was a decline that I did not anticipate happening as rapidly as it did. Before that point, me binding was mostly for aesthetic reasons. I just felt more masculine doing it. I didn't like having a female chest, but I had been used to it. But at this new point in my life, I was starting to get chest dysphoria. I couldn't not bind. I felt disgusting when I wasn't binded. And I hated that. And as I continued to get older, I kept noticing more things about me that were starting to age, like a woman and not like a man. And that's when I started to get very afraid for my future. My fear of transitioning and the side effects that testosterone would bring started to go out the window more and more every single day. I was afraid of going bald. I was afraid of eventually regretting it. I was afraid of sounding weird. I was afraid of looking like an ugly man. And then, as I started to notice small parts of me that were more woman than man at this point, I just broke down. So I decided to start tea. Which came with some problems. The original clinic I planned on going to, which I will not name because they are an amazing clinic and they do a lot of good for the community, but I just had a really bad experience that was like a one-off thing. I went to this clinic because they don't necessarily need you to have like a signed letter from a psychiatrist to let you get on hormones. They sort of just talk to you and then take your blood, and if you're good, and then they give you your shot. And I enjoyed that because I was afraid that if I talked to a mental health specialist, they would just disregard my feelings and sort of just try to spin it into a way where I was depressed and didn't really have dysphoria. So I went to this clinic, and during my blood draw, my heart stopped. For some reason. I have never had heart problems my entire life. I've always been very healthy in that aspect. My organs tend to function. They did take a lot of blood really fast, way faster than they probably should have, so my theory is that I went into shock. Long enough that it was very concerning. I woke up and I was just disoriented and was like, I don't think I'm gonna be doing this today, and they were all like, yeah, you should go. But, because I passed out, and because they weren't able to get any more blood from me, the blood they had already gotten was useless. They didn't get as much as they needed, so they threw it away. But I still had to pay for the blood work. So that was $100-some-odd completely gone from my life. And I went home with nothing to show for it. So I wasn't able to get on T. And at that point, I think I had given up again. I had just decided that life was hell and I was never gonna get on T. But then some trans friends of mine told me about another clinic in our area, Bliss Healthcare, that was apparently pretty good and that I should check out. I made 3 appointments that I did not go to. I am ashamed of that fact, and I'm so sorry to those receptionists. I was terrified that I would go to this appointment and there would be some other reason I wouldn't be able to get on T, and then I would lose more money. So I made a 4th appointment, and before I went, I lost my job. Since I had lost my job, I was terrified that I wasn't going to be able to pay for any of it, but I still went to the appointment. So this clinic actually had me talk to like a case manager, financial aid thingy thing. I don't know the words, and I don't care. But I qualified for assistance, so I didn't lose metric fuck tons of money trying to transition now, which is awesome. The guy they sent me to was really nice, and I'm glad I got to talk to him. He was a super cool guy. But then another downside occurred to me, that this clinic did make you go through a mental health specialist. This was a hurdle I was scared to try to cross because I became so afraid that they would just chalk anything I was feeling up to my depression and very clear self-esteem issues. Fun fact, those self-esteem issues are still dysphoria, I'm just stupid. But the really nice lady I got to talk to diagnosed me with dysphoria, and I got to start T. Like 3 weeks later. But I went in, got my first T shot, and that was on September 16th. So that's my trans experience up until now. That was a lot of backstory, and I'm very, very sorry, because I'm pretty sure it was boring to a lot of you. For those of you who did stick around, welcome back to the original point of all of this. So, 2 months on testosterone. So the kind of injections I have to get are the longer needles that go into your muscle, and I'm not a doctor, and I also don't listen when doctors tell me things, but I'm pretty sure with the longer needles, you get faster results. Because of this, my voice changed really fast, and it's still changing very fast. Like, within the first 2 weeks, my voice was different. I've gotten so many comments on the part 1 and 2 of my Onision videos, because those videos were filmed a month apart, and, like, my voice is so much different in part 2. It's just hilarious to me.
I don't know if, on September 11th, oh my god, he uploaded this on September 11th?
Too trans? What is too trans? How can I be? I want to find out how to be too trans. But that's like an expected change. You expect your voice to drop on testosterone. Here's something I did not expect, and this is going to be a trigger warning for any trans people or sad cis men out there who don't like to hear about menstrual cycles. The day I went in to get my shot, that was the day my Shark Week, so to speak, started, and I was so mad about it. But I got my shot, and then went home, and it had stopped. Like, it was done. like completely. I was very scared, I'll be honest, because typically mine would last about 3 to 4 days. I half anticipated it to start up again, and then it didn't. And it hasn't come back yet. Which is abnormal. I am definitely not the norm there. A lot of trans guys I've talked to have said that that is very weird, and they had theirs for months after starting T. I'm just either insanely lucky, or there's something very wrong with me that we haven't addressed yet. I have actually talked to my doctor about it. So far there's no concern. I just have a weird superpower, I guess. Some other fun changes. My hairline is aggressively receding, I think. I say that because very shortly after starting T, I got a haircut where the hairdresser shaved back a little bit because I have baby hairs that grow in and they look kind of weird. So she shaved those back, and I mean, they've kind of grown back in a little bit. I just don't know. I'm pretty sure my hairline is receding, but since I can't confirm or deny, I do know my hair is a lot drier now, and that might also be because I switched shampoos. Also, I'm using a men's shampoo now, but my hair's drier, I guess. It's been easier to style, though, so that's good. My skin is also very dry all the time. I moisturize a lot more now, and I don't care that cis guys hate skincare. I'm gonna moisturize for the rest of my life. I want to stay looking young. I want to be handsome forever, so I moisturize. My arm hair is also getting thicker. Like, it was hardly noticeable before, and I don't think it shows up on camera that well, but it is definitely thicker, and it's getting darker, which, you know, whatever. I don't care too much. If it gets too gross, I might shave it, funny enough, but, you know, it's fine as it is now. I finally grow hair on my thighs, which is great. Before T, my thighs did not grow hair at all, like, not even blonde hair, just did not grow hair, like, my knees up, nothing. But now they do. It's coming in pretty thick and pretty dark, and I'm hype about it. The hair on my shins is also a lot darker and thicker. I actually hadn't shaved my legs in 6 years, and it looked like I might have not shaved in like a month. I did not grow body hair very well before testosterone. Like, to be honest, I didn't grow it pretty much at all. So testosterone has definitely helped with that. I love having leg hair. That might sound weird, but my legs were a very big source of dysphoria to me because I have very feminine legs, so having the hair helps. And funny enough, even though I'm only 2 months in, I'm growing facial hair pretty well. It's not super noticeable because it grows in blonde. I actually haven't shaved in a hot minute, and I can feel it, and I can see it in a mirror, but to the naked eye and on camera, it doesn't show because it's still very light. It's very prickly, though, and I do like it. I like how it feels. Is this weird? Is it weird that I just sit here and rub my, like, jawline? Speaking of my jawline, my jaw has actually also started to square out just a little bit. Just a tad. Not a lot, because again, it's only 2 months, but like, it is noticeable. Like, my face in general is squaring out a little bit, which is dope as hell. And again, I'm outside the norm on this, but I haven't been getting a lot of acne on my face. I do get the occasional pimple, but that's mostly because as a cosplayer, I wear a lot of makeup, and sometimes I might not get it all off before I pass out for the night. So a lot of the acne I do get is just from improper skincare after makeup application. However, I get body acne now. Like, I've never had body acne before. I get it on my chest, and it makes me sad. Being trans is gross. My gross physical changes aside, I do want to talk about some of my slight emotional changes. I get angry faster now, which I hate. I'm trying to work on that, but I've noticed that, like, my tolerance for inconvenience or stupidity has decreased a lot. And also the stereotypical trans guy thing, my libido is stupid. I don't know why men have to be like this. I'm not gonna fight it, though. And all of this is just in 2 months of testosterone. I'm terrified of what I'm gonna be like in a year. As for the rest of my transition, all I know is that I'm definitely gonna get top surgery, even if I have to do it myself. I'm gonna try to get that done within the next 2 years. My dysphoria is slowly getting worse as I get older, so I definitely need to do it soon. As for any kind of bottom surgery, I'm looking into it. I don't think phyloplasty is necessarily the right option for me. I might go with the other kind of bottom surgery, that's name I can never pronounce correctly, so I'm just gonna put it on the screen. But that's really for future Lee to think about. Right now, I don't have the worst bottom dysphoria. I can manage. I wear a packer every day, and that pretty much alleviates it to the point that I don't think about it as much. So this is me, 2 months on testosterone. I'm probably gonna keep making videos like this, but not every month, maybe, I don't know. It really just depends on if I get any, like, major changes other than just my voice. Maybe I'll do one every 2 months, maybe I won't, I don't know. I guess it also depends on if you guys want to see it. I do want to end this video by saying that if you are experiencing any kind of confusion about your gender identity, you should definitely talk to a professional about it. It is not worth suffering through years of discomfort and mental anguish just because you're afraid to talk to someone. Even if you do not have access to adequate mental health services in your current situation, try talking to your friends or even, God forbid, strangers on the internet if it helps. Everyone deserves to be happy and comfortable in their own body. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do want to see occasional transition updates from me, let me know. I might keep making them. Do consider leaving a comment or a like on this video. It definitely does help. And maybe also subscribe. I don't know, might be a good idea.